This is the 2025 Seattle Non-Congregate Shelter RFP info session. Today is March 7th, 2025. I am Eli Griffin. I'm a procurement coordinator here at KCRHA, and I'm the lead on this procurement process. Today, we're going to go over an overview of the procurement process, an overview of funding, the timeline, scope of work, contract requirements, rating and scoring, an intro to Salesforce, and then a questions and answer section so you can ask any questions that you have about this procurement process. If you are new to working with KCRHA, KCRHA's funding opportunities, also referred to as procurement processes, all have a similar process, but note that each procurement type has its own unique requirements. Before a procurement process begins, we post a notice of funding availability, and this includes information on how much of funding may become available, the type of procurement process we expect to use when we estimate it to open, and so on. We then post the procurement process on our funding opportunities webpage, and the application itself is within Salesforce. Examples of procurement processes that we use are request for proposals, request for qualifications, and request for quotations. We then host an information session like today, so that folks have an opportunity to get an overview of the funding opportunity and also ask us questions. Folks are able to ask questions to procurement staff once the procurement process is posted and until the last day for questions, which is always in the timeline of the RFP. After that last day, we are not able to answer questions, and this is to ensure that agencies have an opportunity to ask, and all agencies also have an opportunity to see the responses to questions that we provide so that everybody has equal access to the same information. When we receive a question via email, we post it on a question and answers document on our Funding Opportunities webpage, as well as the questions that we receive today at an info session. And then we put in our response. If an agency is awarded excuse me, let me restart. If an agency receives an award, they will move on to contract negotiations, and then that agency will work with our contracts team to work through negotiations and contract signing. You will also then work with our programs team where they will assign you a contract specialist who will be your primary contact going forward with KCRHA. They will provide technical assistance as well as contract monitoring, and they are there to help and support agencies. You will also work with Community Impact, which manages our homeless management information system. They are data folks. They review performance based on outcomes developed during contract negotiations, and they're there to support you and offer insight into using HMIS and the health of the program. And you will also work with our compliance team, which does auditing. So the funding for this particular procurement process, the 2025 Seattle Non-Congregate Shelter RFP, is a total of $5,878,000, which is split into $3,200,000 for the remainder of the calendar year 2025, and then $2,678,000 for calendar year 2026. We estimate the number of units possible with this funding in a range of 48 to 122 units. The timeline for this process includes being released on March 6th. We are hosting 2 information sessions on March 7th and March 12th. The last day for you to submit questions to our procurement team at rfp@kcrha.org is April 9th at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The application deadline is April 16th, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Denial notifications will go out the week of May 12th. Appeals will be due 5 business days later, which is approximately the week of May 19th. And then we expect award notifications to go out the week of May 19th as well. And this is with the goal contract start date of June 1st. And please note all of these dates are within the year of 2025. The scope of, excuse me, let me restart. The scope of work is 1 to 2 new non-congregate, low barrier ADA accessible shelters in Seattle for people experiencing unsheltered homelessness with complex needs. It must be open 24/7, and it is estimated that the units possible with the funding can range from 48 to 122. And we expect to award up to 5,878,000 to 1 to 2 agencies and to 2 sites at maximum, and 2 sites at maximum will be selected. The awarded agency will be responsible for maintaining the site, completing any necessary site improvements, operating and managing the non-congregate shelter program, and must effectively serve high acuity clients experiencing homelessness, including establishing and maintaining a safe, supportive environment with private accommodations that address the unique needs of individuals with significant medical conditions, behavioral health challenges, and other complex vulnerabilities. And will need to offer a range of client-centered services designed to promote stability and long-term housing success. Successful proposals will demonstrate the capability of delivering integrated services effectively and efficiently. Please note also this scope of work is high level. For full details for the scope of work and the rest of the presentation today, please review the RFP in full detail. The site must be located within Seattle. Proposals without a location will be considered, but applicants that have a site will be given preference. And competitive bids will have a plan to prepare a site for the operation of the non-congregate shelter. The plan must include community engagement and a good neighbor agreement with shelter neighbors. And upon receiving the award letter, the shelter provider must immediately engage with the Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections to efficiently prepare the site. The timeline and budget for this procurement precludes any new capital projects, and the shelter must be non-congregate. And it can be non-congregate single building, non-congregate micromodal buildings, or a combination of both. And if it's micromodal, it must be insulated, ventilated, secure, connected to utilities with individual unit controlled cooling and heating. And competitive proposals will include individual or communal kitchen areas, including and pet accommodation, showers, laundry, and restrooms. Service delivery must include 24/7 staffing to ensure consistent supervision and support. On-site case management should be offered to address clients' immediate and long-term needs. On-site behavioral health and substance use counseling must also be available. Service delivery must also fulfill the basic needs of a shelter, including hygiene, food and meals, secure and accessible storage, and supportive services and case management. And it must have low barriers to entry. Clients must be able to enter and exit the shelter 24 hours a day as they desire and be able to bring partners, pets, and possessions. The shelter's primary focus will be working with individuals to move into stable housing, and services must align with a low barrier housing first model that prioritizes harm reduction and trauma informed practices. The program must be accessible and welcoming and reduce barriers to entry, and client choice must be centered throughout their stay. And then it should have a client to staff ratio of 15 clients per 1 staff. Required training includes trauma-informed care, de-escalation and crisis intervention, harm reduction strategies, housing first principles, homeless management information system or HMIS entry and compliance, cultural competency and anti-racism, first aid, CPR, and naloxone administration, motivational interviewing, assertive engagement and case management best practices, mental health first aid, and domestic violence and trauma informed training as well. Best practices should include housing first, harm reduction, trauma informed care, person centered and strengths based approaches, culturally responsive services, effective case management, and data driven decision making. And the RFP goes into further detail around the training and best practices. Data management and reporting for agencies must include a maintenance of accurate records of client engagement and program outcomes, which includes entering and updating client data in Homeless Management Information System or HMIS to ensure comprehensive tracking of service utilization and progress. And regular reporting is required on key metrics, including service delivery, client progress, and overall program effectiveness. Minimum performance standards. We include in the RFP minimum and target performance standards. The minimum performance standards for exit rate to permanent housing is 40%, while the target performance standard exit rate to permanent housing is 50%. The minimum performance standard for length of stay is 90 days, while the target performance is 30 days. Return rate to homelessness has a minimum standard of 10%, while the target standard is 8%. Entries from homelessness is 90% for both minimum and target performance standards. And then utilization rate is 85% for minimum standards and 95% for target performance standards. The awarded agency must be able to coordinate with partners, local service providers, healthcare agencies, and other stakeholders to ensure comprehensive support for clients, which includes fostering partnerships to enhance access to community resources and promote successful transitions to permanent housing. A portion of the new units created through this funding are reserved for unsheltered people in high impact areas that have substantial encampments as substantiated by the Unified Care Team data. And then the awarded agency must have coordinated entry assessors and actively participate in the coordinated entry system. Allowable costs include salaries, wages, and fringe benefits, other operating costs, subcontracts and subawards, public utility services, travel, administrative costs, capital outlays associated with preparing the site for operation, costs associated with prevailing wage and bidding requirements based on the proposal, and indirect costs. And agencies may elect to use a federally negotiated rate, but you will need to supply documentation for that. Unallowable costs include computers and software and any costs not associated with establishing or running a non-congregate low barrier shelter in Seattle. This is just a high level overview of allowable costs. Please refer to the RFP for full details. Contracting requirements include our minimum eligibility requirements and a financial review. I will go into further detail on both of these in just a moment. KCRHA will work with the awarded agency to establish and evaluate performance metrics, which will be incorporated into each project service agreement or PSA, and all funded agencies will participate in data collection through the King County Homeless Management Information System. There must be a good neighbor agreement and a safety plan for fires and other relevant emergencies. There are more contracting terms in the RFP, but I want to highlight this specific term due to the nature of the funding request. Some projects may require compliance with prevailing wage and competitive bidding laws. Recipients of grant funds may be subject to RCW 39.12, prevailing wages, if the project qualifies as a public work or meets other criteria. Refer to the Washington State Department of Labor and Industries, as well as the RFP for more details. I mentioned a financial review before. That includes the agency's current fiscal year's financial statements, which includes balance sheet, income statements, and statement of cash flows certified by the agency's CFO, finance officer, or board treasurer, the most recent audit reports, and most recent fiscal year ending Form 990. Our minimum eligibility requirement checklist can be found on our funding opportunities website. The link is also here on this slide deck. And that includes agencies having to supply at least one of a certificate of incorporation, federal, state, federal or state registry listing, or authorizing documents, and then a certificate of existence, employer identification number registration confirmation, copy of any relevant business licenses, KCRHA certification of non-debarment and suspension, which can be found at the funding, which can be found within the minimum eligibility checklist, and then proof of active system award management registration and unique identity number. Um, Applications will be rated out of 100 points for the following criteria. Please note that agencies must receive at least a score of 70 points to be eligible. And so rating and scoring includes site operations for a total of 20 points, service delivery for 35 points, collaboration and partnerships for 10, racial equity and social justice for 20 points, data management and fiscal systems for 10 points, and then budget for 5 points. Please note that the rating panel is made up of community members who are subject matter and lived experts, and they are directed to rate using the rating criteria and only the information provided by agencies within an application. And this is to ensure that it is a fair process. And raters are told not to use their perception of agencies outside of the application. So please be as detailed and thorough in your responses as possible, as raters cannot assume anything about an application. It has to be within the application itself. All right, so we are using Salesforce as our new grants and contracts management system, and all applicants must register and create an account in order to apply. The link to our portal is on this slide deck, as well as our web page. If you are unsure if your agency has an account, when you select new agency registration, you can enter in your unique entity ID number. If there is a duplicate, that means if a duplicate is found, that means your agency already has an account. If there is no duplicate, then you will move forward with registering your agency. Um, if you already have an account, you will log in and you will need to reset your password. So you will select password reset. If you have any issues logging in, though, you can reach out to our grant admin team. The best way to reach out to them is through our grants management resource webpage, where you can Select to book troubleshooting sessions through a request form. This is essentially a ticket form, so you can input any issues you have and they will respond back within 24 to 48 hours and very quick. And you can also book a troubleshooting team session with them if you still have issues after that. In order to apply, once you log in, you will select My Applications, click on Apply for New Funding Opportunity, and then you will select the Seattle Non-Congregate Shelter RFP. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for one quick moment so that I can show you what the application looks like in Salesforce. So please bear with me one quick moment. You should be seeing my screen with a Salesforce application pulled up. You will have a very similar looking application, such as this one, which will have application instructions as well as the application due date. In order to move through, you can click on Save and Review Next Section, or come to the menu on the side here. Each of these items include questions and the total number of points available for each question that is within the RFP, as well as the rating criteria afterwards, so you know what we are looking for and what you will be rated on. After you move through each of these sections with questions, you will then come to the budget section. If you have a federally approved indirect rate, you will be able to upload proof and enter in your rate. You will be able to upload your budget narrative as well as create a personnel table and fill out your budget in this table here below for supplies, other services, and charges. You will then fill out a conflict of interest certification. The link to that is at the bottom here. You will upload that. If your agency identifies that it may have any apparent or potential conflicts of interest, you will select yes. And then the disclosure form is down here, which you will fill out and upload. And then finally, we have required documents, which includes all of the required financial documents I discussed earlier, and below is minimum eligibility documents. You can find the link to the checklist here, which also includes the non-debarment certification. Once everything has been filled out and all required forms have been filled, you will then at the bottom have a button appear that allows you to submit your application. Okay, let me go back to my slide deck one quick moment. And let me go back to the slide I was on. All right. As I said, if you have any issues with Salesforce, please reach out to our grant management team. Go to our grant management resource, and then you'll be able to fill out a form if you have any issues. At this webpage, it also includes a PDF system guide, which will walk you through on how to create an account, change your password, apply for funding processes, and so on. There are also training videos and more information there. For more information specifically about this funding process, go to our Funding Opportunities webpage, which is where we post notice of funding availability, live funding opportunities such as this one, and then a response to any question and answers that we receive. So under the RFP questions and answers tab will be one for the Seattle Non-Congregate Shelter RFP. I will include a link to this slide deck today, so you have access to all the information shared, as well as any links within this slide deck. And early next week, we will have a recording to this posted on our YouTube channel. With that, I will open it up to any questions. Right. If you can raise your hand, or you can also put them in the Q&A if you would prefer. John, I see you have raised your hand. You can go, John, or if you're talking, you are muted. John, can you try to unmute? There we go. Hold on. All right, let's hear from Holly. If I can't hear you, Holly, it might be my headphones. So can you try, Holly?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. What I was, goodness, sorry, I'm just wondering, just suddenly wondering if I have these confused with a different opportunity, but I think this is the right one. What I'm wondering about is whether with this opportunity, if there is any allowance for age-specific housing, or if it needs to be open to um, all who are in the target population. Just wondering, because we primarily serve youth and young adults, and so what I'm wondering, so we're basically up to age 24, and I want to know if that would be allowable or if that would disqualify us from the funding.
That is a good question. We do have another RFP upcoming that is for youth and young adults capital repairs. We did have the NOFA release right at the same time as this one, and they are very similar. This one is for single adults who are ages 18 and up. I will get more details around if there is allowance for age specific, and I'll upload our Q&A document with more details on that.
Okay. And then how often is the Q&A document uploaded? I apologize if I missed that.
Oh, you are good. It is uploaded once we get questions. I will try to have answers for this any questions from this specific info session uploaded by Monday. We try to get it within 24 to 48 hours.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. John, so sorry about earlier.
I think that was a tech issue on my end. I apologize for that.
No worries. I can hear you now. We're good.
Okay, good. Thank you, Eli. I appreciate it. Just a handful of questions. The RFP mentions that there are some unallowable costs, and I see that computers and software is listed there. So does that mean we can't buy computers for our case managers, or we typically operate tiny house villages, which we use computers for a number of things. Like we have a security system with security cameras around the site that all link back to a central computer. And then we also have case management software that has a per user fee. And the way I'm reading this is that it looks like those would not be eligible costs, and seems like a pretty basic, need for the program, computers and software. So just had that question. Do you have an answer for that, or just we'll get back to us on that?
I will get back to you on that. Let me look into a little bit more, especially as you mentioned security. I just want to double check before I give you a response.
Yeah, for sure. I just wanted to flag that. And then the RFP says that the micromodular units have to be connected to utilities. So typically a tiny house village, tiny houses or modular units, however you want to call them, are connected to electricity. But we have a separate hygiene trailer for hot and cold showers, bathrooms. There's not like a bathroom connected. So I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't an issue. I didn't think it would be, but I wasn't sure what you all meant by utilities.
Utilities is referring to electricity. You'll see competitive will include showers and that, so a hygiene trailer would fulfill that.
Yeah, that's fine as long as it's not like a part of that same unit. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I see there's a requirement that the client has to be allowed to bring partners into the facility. Is that true even if they are not enrolled in the program?
Let me check with our programs team.
Because that would be kind of a safety concern for us. Typically, like we're fine with adult couples who are like together, being in the same unit. That's totally fine. But if somebody's enrolled and then they're letting someone else in who's not enrolled in the program, that's a safety concern for us. And then if we apply to build two separate sites, so two tiny house villages, would you want us to submit one combined budget for those two locations or two separate budgets? Does that make sense? Would we consolidate it into one application, or do you want two separate budgets to upload? And then I think my last question is the list of trainings that you all have. We do provide trainings, all of those trainings to our staff, but sometimes they're combined into one big training. So I guess what do we need to do to document or explain how we satisfy that requirement?
That is a good question. Let me reach out to our other team. Thank you for bearing with me today. To specifically on documentation, we also include in the RFP that agencies have up to 1 year to meet that requirement. Having those trainings, and as long as agencies are training those staff on adequately, you will be able to. It's simply the question around how to document it. I will reach back out to you on that one.
Okay. I mean, if it's as simple as saying, yes, we provide those trainings, then it's not a concern. And then I just realized my second to last question, my last question is, what's the composition of the rating panel? I know you can't identify individuals, but like, is it KCRHA staff, folks from the Lived Experience Coalition? Like, what's the composition of the panel?
Yeah, so rating panels are open to community members. We will often post on our funding opportunities webpage an opportunity for folks to apply. It is not KCRHA staff, except in very specific circumstances where if it was like a technical application. But for RFPs, it is community members who are lived experts and subject matter experts. So when we have, for example, a shelter RFP, we're looking for folks with subject matter expertise in shelters. If it includes anything with capital, we often reach out to agencies such as King County to ask if they have any staff that are able to help on that subject matter portion. And then again, it is community members, so they are applying. We are reviewing their their knowledge and are selecting them based on their skills, their skill set, and how well it applies to the funding opportunity. It is a different makeup of folks each time. Does that answer your question?
What's the makeup this time?
The panel has not been put together just yet, so we will be having a panel, but we always require subject matter experts and lived experts. It has to be a combo. We want it to be as fair a process possible, and any agency that is applying cannot have their staff on it as well. So anybody who has a conflict of interest cannot be a member of a panel.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Right. I see there is a chat. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions that I can answer?
Hi, I have one question. I'm wondering if there's a way to, well, can there be limitations on the population that you serve, say female identifying, or this is similar to the question that the other person asked about youth. Just are we looking for a shelter that serves all adults, or can there be carve outs for marginalized populations?
Let me double check with our programs team. And then I will post in our Q&A document a combined response to you and Holly.
Great, thank you.
Mhm. Oh, thank you, John, for pointing out that typo. I'll get that fixed. Holly.
I just had one other question about the capital situation, I guess. As I am clear that you can't do like a major capital project to build something new, but that some preparation can happen. And I'm wondering if there's like a particular dollar amount, like a particular proportion of your proposal, if there are any specific limits on the dollar amount that can be going towards capital updates, or if that's just left ambiguous.
Let me get further clarity on that from you. It is, I believe, ambiguous within the RFP. However, I think I can get more clarity for you. And then if we update the RFP based on that, I will also include a link to the updated RFP within the Q&A.
Okay, great. Thank you.
One other question, when it says that the shelter must fulfill the basic needs, and one of those is food and meals, does that mean we have to provide 3 meals a day, or the ability for guests to prepare their own meals?
Sorry, I am typing this down. I apologize we weren't able to have a programs team member with us today, but I will also get that answered for you. These are all very good, our program specific questions.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, John.
Yeah, I think I know the answer from the RFP, but it is a little fuzzy to me. On page 6, it says the timeline and budget for this procurement precludes any new capital projects. But under allowable costs, it does say capital outlays associated with preparing the site of a non-congregate shelter. So like when we go and build a tiny house village, I guess is that we don't think of it as a capital project, but it is a construction project. You know what I mean? Like building tiny houses and installing, plumbing and, doing this and that. And, we don't think of that as a capital project, but it could be interpreted that way. I just want to make sure that that's not the case. It seems under allowable costs, what I'm describing, that's what you mean by capital outlays. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. So it's no new permanent capital, so not a new large building, but something such as a tiny house is allowable.
Okay,
Um,
great.
yeah.
Thank you.
It's essentially kind of the amount of funding and the we're needing to get this program up as soon as possible, and building an entire new capital project would take too long. However, other projects such as tiny homes would meet that timeline requirement. Okay. Any other questions? All right, Angie.
One, I don't know if you can answer this, but I'm wondering if this is going to be a renewable funding source or if it's a one-time funding opportunity.
Let me get clarity on that.
Great, thanks.
All right. So I will have all of these questions and answers up by Monday, end of day. If you need further clarification after that response is posted, please feel free to reach out at rfp@kcrha.org. I'm going to post our email as well as our funding opportunities webpage in the chat, so you have those links. And then there will be another information session on the 12th. That's Wednesday, the 12th at 12 p.m. So if you have further questions or need further clarification, you are more than welcome to attend then as well. All right. So I apologize for not having all the answers today, but I'll get those to you as soon as possible. And I really appreciate you all attending today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.